In the heart of Switzerland's Marin district, beneath the sprawling countryside, lies one of humanity's most remarkable scientific achievements, the Large Hadron Collider. On a brisk morning in 2012, physicist Dr. Ariadne Mills stood among her colleagues at CERN as they confirmed the discovery of the Higgs boson, a particle so fundamental to our understanding of reality that it had been sought for nearly 5 decades. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, not realizing how prophetic those words would be. 10 years later, Dr. Mills found herself staring at a computer screen, puzzled by an anomaly in her quantum encryption experiments. She had been working on improving random number generation, the mathematical backbone of modern cryptography, when her algorithms began producing peculiar patterns. Random numbers should not have patterns, that was their essential nature. Randomness is not just a mathematical abstraction or a philosophical concept. It is, in many ways, the fabric that holds our universe together. From the quantum fluctuations that birthed our cosmos during the Big Bang to the genetic mutations that drive evolution, from the thermal motion of molecules to the seemingly chaotic patterns of weather systems, randomness appears deeply woven into reality itself. But what if this fundamental resource, randomness, was finite? What if, like fossil fuels or helium, we could actually exhaust it? The question might sound absurd at first. After all, how could something as intangible as randomness be depleted? Yet, as Dr. Mills and other scientists around the world have begun to discover, this question touches on profound truths about information theory, quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and even the ultimate fate of our universe. In 1948, mathematician Claude Shannon published A Mathematical Theory of Communication, establishing information theory as a field. Shannon demonstrated that information and entropy, a measure of disorder or randomness, were intimately connected. True randomness, he showed, contains the maximum possible information content because it cannot be compressed or predicted. Every bit in a truly random sequence carries a full bit of information. This understanding transformed how we think about randomness. It is not merely the absence of pattern but a resource as real and valuable as energy or matter. And like all resources in a closed system, it might be subject to depletion. The Shannon entropy equations suggested this possibility decades ago, explains Dr. Isaiah Montgomery, a theoretical physicist at MIT, but we lacked the computational power to observe the effects until recently. What Dr. Mills discovered at CERN was the first measurable evidence of what we're calling entropy depletion in quantum systems. At the quantum level, true randomness emerges from fundamental uncertainties described by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. When we measure quantum properties like the exact position or momentum of a particle, nature provides genuinely random outcomes. These random quantum events form the basis for quantum random number generators, QRNGs, devices that harvest randomness for cryptographic purposes. But Dr. Mills observed something troubling. When pushed to extremes, these quantum systems began producing subtle correlations. The randomness was degrading. This observation connects to a principle that physicist John Wheeler formalized in 1989, it from bit. Wheeler proposed that physical reality ultimately emerges from information. If he was correct, then information, and by extension, randomness, is as fundamental to reality as matter or energy. We did not believe it at first, Dr. Mills recounts. We spent months checking our equipment, revising our methodologies, even rebuilding parts of the experimental apparatus. But the pattern persisted. Something was happening to the quantum randomness we were attempting to harvest. The implications extended far beyond cryptography. In 1929, physicist Leo Szilard linked information to physical reality by resolving the famous Maxwell's demon paradox. Szilard showed that the information processing required by the demon would generate heat, preserving the second law of thermodynamics. This connection between information and thermodynamics suggests that changes in available randomness could affect physical processes throughout the universe. To understand this connection better, consider how randomness manifests in various scientific domains. In evolutionary biology, random genetic mutations provide the raw material for natural selection. These mutations, copying errors in DNA replication or damage from radiation, introduce variation into populations. Without this randomness, evolution would grind to a halt. Harvard evolutionary biologist Dr. Natalie Petrova explains, imagine if every organism produced offspring identical to itself, with no random variations. There would be no adaptation, no evolution. The first environmental challenge that the species could not survive would lead to extinction. Randomness is essential for life's resilience. Similar principles apply in ecology. The seemingly random distribution of species across landscapes, what ecologists call stochasticity, contributes to biodiversity. If environmental pressures became too predictable, ecosystem diversity would decline dramatically as specialist species outcompete generalists. In neuroscience, randomness plays a crucial role in brain development. As neurons form connections during early development, random variations in synaptic strength allow for pruning and reinforcement based on experience. This process, called neuroplasticity, enables learning and adaptation. If neural development followed strictly deterministic rules, our brains would be less adaptable and creative. Even in astronomy and cosmology, randomness shapes our universe. The slight density fluctuations in the early universe, quantum fluctuations magnified by inflation, led to the formation of galaxies, stars, and ultimately, us. Without those random variations, matter would have been distributed uniformly, preventing the gravitational collapse necessary for structure formation. The cosmic microwave background radiation shows these tiny temperature fluctuations, about 1 part in 100,000, explains astrophysicist Dr. Carlos Vega at Caltech. Those minuscule random variations were enough to seed the entire cosmic web of galaxies. Randomness was the genesis of all cosmic structure. But if randomness is indeed finite, what happens when we run out? This question brings us to thermodynamics and the concept of entropy. In the 1850s, Rudolf Clausius formulated the second law of thermodynamics, stating that the total entropy of an isolated system always increases over time. In other words, systems naturally become more disordered. This law explains why heat flows from hot to cold objects, why mixed gases do not spontaneously separate, and why, ultimately, the universe tends toward thermal equilibrium. The heat death of the universe, its final state of maximum entropy, has been theorized for over a century, explains theoretical physicist Dr. Eliza Wong. But we always viewed this as an energy distribution problem. What if it is actually an information and randomness depletion problem? When a system reaches maximum entropy, it might seem maximally random, but paradoxically, it also becomes utterly predictable in its uniformity. A universe in complete thermal equilibrium would lack the energy gradients needed for complex processes, including those that generate new randomness. This connects to mathematician John von Neumann's work in the 1940s on cellular automata, computational models where simple rules produce complex patterns. Von Neumann showed that certain patterns could reproduce themselves, forming the theoretical basis for self-replicating systems. His work suggested that complexity, and by extension, meaningful randomness, requires particular initial conditions and rules. Not all forms of chaos produce useful randomness. What we are discovering, Dr. Montgomery explains, is that the universe may have started with a finite amount of what we call cryptographic randomness that cannot be reduced to simpler patterns. And we may be consuming it faster than natural processes can replenish it. The consumption occurs through various mechanisms. Every time we use a quantum random number generator for cryptography, we are essentially extracting randomness from quantum systems. Every measurement of a quantum state collapses the probability wave function, converting potential randomness into a determined outcome. Even processes like radioactive decay, which we use for random number generation, might be depleting the universe's reservoir of unpredictability. In 2019, Google announced quantum supremacy, demonstrating a quantum computer that could perform calculations impossible for classical computers. This milestone, achieved by a team led by John Martinis, represented a fundamental shift in computation and possibly in our relationship with randomness. Quantum computers rely on quantum bits or qubits that exist in superpositions of states, embodying quantum uncertainty. But when we measure these qubits, we force them to assume definite values, potentially depleting quantum randomness. Dr. Mills's discovery suggested that intensive quantum computation might be depleting randomness faster than we realized. Her team observed that quantum random number generators operating near large quantum computers showed statistically significant declines in randomness quality. The effect was subtle but unmistakable. It was as if we were drilling into an aquifer of randomness, she explains, and beginning to see the water table drop. This observation sparked an international research initiative. In laboratories from Beijing to Berkeley, scientists began monitoring the quality of quantum randomness. They deployed sophisticated statistical tests like the NIST statistical test suite and the die-harder battery to detect subtle patterns in supposedly random data streams. By 2025, the trend was clear: quantum random number generators worldwide were showing small but increasing deviations from perfect randomness. The effect was most pronounced near quantum computing facilities and high-energy physics experiments. The discovery prompted serious questions. If randomness depletion was real, what would happen to systems that depend on it? How would it affect evolution, climate patterns, brain function, and cryptographic security? In evolutionary biology, researchers at the University of Edinburgh began monitoring mutation rates in fast-reproducing organisms like bacteria. They observed a subtle but statistically significant decrease in truly novel mutations that could not be predicted from known mechanisms. The genetic innovations that drive adaptation were becoming rarer. It was as if life's creative engine was running out of new ideas, noted geneticist Dr. Robert Chen. The mutations we observed were increasingly falling into predictable categories. Climate scientists noticed similar patterns in weather systems. Dr. Mei Zhang at NOAA discovered that while weather remained chaotic in the conventional sense, the statistical distribution of extreme weather events was narrowing. Weather was becoming paradoxically more extreme but less diverse in the forms those extremes took. We are seeing the same types of storms, the same patterns of drought, repeatedly, Dr. Zhang explained. The weather is not becoming more predictable moment to moment, but its patterns are becoming less innovative over time. In neuroscience, researchers at UCSD found that human brain activity was showing subtle changes. EEG readings from thousands of subjects revealed that neural firing patterns were becoming marginally more correlated across brain regions. The spontaneous creativity that emerges from neural randomness was declining slightly but measurably. Perhaps most concerning were the implications for information security. By 2027, cryptographers began reporting systematic vulnerabilities in encryption systems based on quantum randomness. Patterns were emerging in supposedly secure communications, patterns that could potentially be exploited by advanced adversaries. The foundational assumption of cryptography is that certain mathematical problems require randomness to be secure, explains cryptographer Dr. James Lee. If that randomness is compromised, the entire edifice of digital security becomes vulnerable. These developments forced scientists to consider radical questions. Could randomness be conserved, like energy? Could it be generated artificially? Or was the universe fundamentally running down, not just thermodynamically but informationally? In 2028, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Astronomer Dr. Sophia Patel, analyzing data from the James Webb Space Telescope, discovered unusual quantum fluctuations in the vacuum of intergalactic space. These fluctuations appeared to be generating true randomness at prodigious rates. We had been looking in the wrong place, Dr. Montgomery explains. We thought randomness was primarily generated in high-energy events like supernovae or black hole mergers. But Dr. Patel showed that the vacuum itself is constantly bubbling with quantum fluctuations that produce new randomness. The problem was not that the universe was running out of randomness, it was that we were consuming it locally faster than it could be replenished. This discovery led to a new theoretical framework: randomness, like energy, might obey conservation principles. It cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed and redistributed. And like renewable energy resources, randomness might be harvested sustainably if we understand its sources and limits. The insights gained through this research have profound implications for how we understand reality. They suggest that information is not abstract but physical, as real as matter or energy. This idea, first proposed by physicist Rolf Landauer in 1961 when he proved that erasing information requires energy, has now gained new significance. Landauer's principle showed that information has physical consequences, explains Dr. Mills. What we are discovering is that randomness as a form of information has physical consequences too. It affects everything from quantum systems to evolutionary processes to climate patterns. And if we consume it irresponsibly, we might fundamentally alter how those systems function. These realizations have led to new approaches in multiple fields. In computing, researchers are developing randomness-efficient algorithms that accomplish the same security goals while consuming less entropy. In conservation biology, scientists are establishing evolutionary reserves, protected areas where natural selection can operate with minimal human interference, preserving nature's capacity for random innovation. Climate engineers are exploring ways to preserve atmospheric chaos, the beneficial randomness that drives weather diversity. Neuroscientists are investigating how to maintain neural stochasticity as populations age. And astronomers are mapping the universe's randomness wells, regions where quantum fluctuations might be harvested sustainably. We are learning to be responsible stewards of randomness, Dr. Montgomery explains. Just as we came to understand the importance of preserving biodiversity, we now recognize the value of preserving entropy diversity, the full spectrum of randomness that keeps our world vibrant and adaptive. This new understanding reveals a universe more interconnected than we ever imagined. The random quantum fluctuations that fuel cryptographic systems are the same fluctuations that drive genetic mutations, that seed galaxy formation, that enable neural creativity. When we consume randomness in one domain, we potentially affect all others. The mathematics is clear, Dr. Mills reflects. Shannon's information theory, Landauer's principle, quantum mechanics, and the second law of thermodynamics all point to the same conclusion: randomness is a finite resource that connects all physical processes. By understanding its flow through systems, we gain unprecedented insight into the nature of reality itself. This realization has sparked what some call a randomness renaissance, a new appreciation for unpredictability as essential to both natural and human creativity. Artists are collaborating with physicists to explore the aesthetics of true randomness. Philosophers are re-examining ancient questions about determinism and free will in light of these discoveries. And everyday citizens are learning to value the constructive chaos that drives innovation. As we face an uncertain future with climate change, technological disruption, and social transformation, understanding randomness offers a powerful lens for navigating complexity. It suggests that adaptability requires embracing unpredictability, that resilience emerges from diversity, and that creativity flourishes at the edge of chaos. The universe is not running out of randomness, Dr. Montgomery concludes. But our discovery of its finite nature in local systems has revealed something profound: that uncertainty is not a bug in reality's code but a feature. It is the creative principle that allows the universe to explore possibilities, to innovate, to evolve. When we appreciate randomness not as an obstacle to understanding but as fundamental to existence, we see reality more clearly than ever before. In her lab at CERN, Dr. Mills continues her research, now focused on mapping the flow of randomness through physical systems. The anomaly that troubled her years ago has opened a window into reality's deepest nature. She understands now that the question is not what happens when we run out of randomness, but what happens when we recognize its value and learn to live in harmony with uncertainty. As evening falls over the Swiss countryside, she steps outside to look at the stars, those distant furnaces of fusion and randomness that make life possible. In their seemingly chaotic arrangement, she sees not meaningless disorder but the beautiful unpredictability that makes our universe not just complex but creative. And in that recognition lies a profound truth, that the patterns we cherish emerge from the randomness we are only beginning to understand.